Hello, friends, and welcome to Belly Talk, a podcast made for bears by bears. This is a space to have deeper conversations about the bear experience and to help us all open up and be vulnerable and grow together. My name is John Fisher. I also go by Coach Cub. I am a certified health and wellness coach who's been working with bears for over a decade, facilitating classes and workshops and retreats. I'm very passionate about helping people find self-love and acceptance of their bodies. I'm also passionate about connection and community and overall joy. I'm excited to be here with my co-host, Johnny Bear.
Thanks, Coach Cub. That's right, I'm Johnny Bear. I am a licensed clinical social worker, a personal chef, a writer, an artist, and a multi-trauma survivor. I am here to help facilitate or co-facilitate discussions regarding everything within the bear community, particularly wellness and body positivity. I'm looking forward to getting to know the guests that we will be having on and also you, the audience. I can't wait to explore and take on this adventure one conversation at a time.
And we hope you enjoy this upcoming episode. You can learn more about the classes that we run in New York City and beyond, the retreats in Portugal and all over the US, and even find some fun merch all at coachcub.com. So I hope you unbuckle your belt, let that belly out, take a deep breath, and enjoy the show.
Right on.
Belly talk, we talk about our bellies, we talk about our family, we talk about bears. Belly talk, now cozy up and listen, we got a warm rendition of loving and care. Belly talk, we love a belly. Belly talk, we love a belly. Belly talk, belly talk.
Well, welcome everybody. Welcome back to Belly Talk. This is our special episode series. This is called the mini rub, where Johnny Bear and I talk about a different topic each time. Last time we did this, I think it was around the holidays. But we're going to be incorporating these more and more because we have a lot of fun with them. But today's topic is authentic travel. And we have tips and suggestions for how you can, make the most out of your travel this year and to do it in a way that feels right to you. And we dress for the occasion. So, Johnny Bear, you can share a little bit about yourself and what you have on.
Well, I decided since we are talking about travel tips, I am going to be wearing my state of the art travel shirt. I have plenty of prints, but this one feels nice because it reminds me of the ocean and just being in a serene setting where I hope we'll all be at some point. And this beautiful episode is all about getting ready for that.
I love it. Yeah, so you have like I guess, a Hawaiian style,
Yeah, it's
would you say?
palm trees. It could be Key West. It could be
Mm,
California. I don't know. Sometimes it
very summery.
could just be New York and just walking around Central Park.
I love it. Well, so I showed up to the episode wearing a green hoodie because it's 35 degrees in New York right now.
Yeah.
And thought, no, if we're going on an authentic travel trip here on the podcast, I'll put on my silk Hawaiian shirt. So I have my shirt that I don't have many excuses to wear, but I love it. And it kind of does set off the topic really well because I bought this in Honolulu. I had a girlfriend of mine who had been there years before me, and she said, "Oh, you have to go to this thrift store. It's like off the beaten path, and they have like, I don't know, it's like 10,000 vintage Hawaiian shirts." So
Wow.
I bought this. I don't know. I bought one for me, one for my husband, and I also bought a caftan there.
Oh,
But it's just so fun.
yeah.
And I don't know about you guys or you, Johnny, but like when I go somewhere, I want to like really be a part of the culture and enjoy things in a way that feels really authentic and not too touristy. Of course, like I think there's a line between like appropriating a culture and respecting it, and this episode's gonna be a little bit more just about like how do we really connect with the location and have an authentic experience and how do we do it in a way that feels also authentic to us? So like there's no one right way to do this, which is kind of
A-
a cool idea.
Absolutely. I love when, first of all, I love your shirt and I love vintage clothing and I love finding little nooks and crannies when I'm shopping, particularly when I'm away on vacation, to find things that are off the beaten track. It's always been my thing. And I think I was raised with that because my grandparents, God bless them, they were married 62 years and they traveled the globe. And they, when at the time they were traveling was, 1930s and 40s. And they really got to know the countries that they landed in from the inside out. And that's kind of how I approach it as well.
That's so funny because that's exactly the same for my grandparents. My grandparents were like globetrotters, and I pictures of them riding, camels in Egypt, and they did a lot of like boating and sailing, and they flew in a Concorde, like so they kind of passed that on to my dad and then on to me, just you know, the idea of travel, and they would always tell me, if you go to a location, like don't eat where everyone else is eating, like find a local, find out where they eat and go there. So yeah, it's funny that we both have that kind of instilled in us.
Yeah, I see pictures of them from all over, and I'm like, I couldn't imagine like traveling at that time, knowing how I know knowing how I travel now and how quick it is to get anywhere, quote
Hmm.
unquote quick and convenient and fast. Yet these people were traveling at that time, you know, 24 hours to get somewhere where it takes us maybe 9 hours
Yeah.
or so.
No Wi-Fi on the boat.
No, no, not at all. So we're pretty lucky with what we have, but that also opens us up to a lot more to be aware of in our
True.
travels.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. I think it's like a blessing and a curse. It's like
Yeah,
it's easier to travel now. There's more apps and things you could use to get around, but then maybe it doesn't always feel as authentic. And, we created this episode for people who maybe travel somewhere and you get home and you're kind of like, did I really do what I wanted to do? Or maybe you are traveling and you feel over exhausted and you don't know how to balance like seeing things and having fun with resting, or, you just want something, you're yearning for something more meaningful. So we have 5 categories that we're going to talk through on this episode. The first is think outside the tourist box. The second is travel at your own pace. The third is meet the locals. The fourth is savor local cuisine. And the fifth is take care of yourself. So we'll go through each category and kind of tee it up and just talk about, how we approach each of these things. So the first one, like I said, is think outside the tourist box, which sounds like your grandparents did, and so did mine. And I think when I'm thinking about this, it's like, as you said, there's more ways to kind of fall into traps now. It's like we have Instagram, we have, all these Yelps and tourism websites, and it's like you have sites that you want to see, and you have, it's like a lot of people have bucket lists of, okay, I need to see Big Ben and see that and take a photo. I need to do this thing and take a photo, and it can all just feel like you're just checking off boxes. Um, but then, of course, there are some places that are touristy that are worth going. So it's hard to kind of figure that out. But for me, I know from like the experiences I have traveling and with the bear hug retreats that we run, it's like when you kind of veer off of that beaten path and you allow things to kind of just happen, like, you're driving from one city to another and you stop in a town you didn't really plan to stop in. Like that's usually when the magic happens. Like you meet locals or you see something you didn't think you're going to see, and like that's where like the marrow is, I think, of travel. Um, or you find like a little park or something. Like those are the things that are most meaningful to me than just seeing a site with a crowd and taking a photo. Does that resonate with you?
absolutely. And I respect people who travel, who like to go according to schedule, and they put a lot of effort and they plan
Hmm.
ahead and they're very comfortable working within the confines of like a tour or the checklist, and there's nothing wrong with that at all.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
I think it's a great way to travel because it gives you it meets your needs, whatever they are. I think what we're talking about is maybe expanding, like you said, thinking outside the tourist box. And if you want to go into a travel experience, is to trust your gut more, and obviously be aware of where you are for safety reasons and other reasons, but give yourself permission to explore a little if you want, because that, like you said, can be the most exciting and brilliant time, even getting a flat tire, God forbid, and meeting the tow truck guy and him inviting you back to have lunch with his family. I mean, these things
Hmm.
happen. Um, and it's just, I think the concept of being open when you're traveling and aware is really key as well.
Yeah, I love that you said that because yeah, there's no right or wrong way to do it. I think yeah,
Right.
it's expanding. Like even if you have a checklist, but then it's like yeah, just allow maybe further experiences to happen. I know, like for me, when I was younger, we would go and live in Germany for a while, and there was one time we went down to the bakery and it was closed, and yeah, the neighbor of the bakery invited us over and we played soccer in her yard, and she wrote Christmas cards to my mom for the next 20 years. So
Right.
have you ever had times like where you just stumble upon something and it was really profound? Like I know, for example, in Portugal, you found that park, the queer park that
Oh,
I end up going to a lot.
God. Yeah, I had a couple of days in Portugal towards the end on my own, and which I wanted, and I just wandered. I had a pretty good idea. I talked to my concierge at the hotel, so I made sure I didn't wander into the wrong areas. And she guided me towards one park, but I think I wound up in another park. And this park was just the amount of beauty that was there, the serenity and the people, and it was local people, and there were fountains, and there were so many gay people, uh, male, female, trans, and they were all hanging, and there were couples and families, and it was musical, and it was just an evening of just this is what they do. And I said, my God, how lucky am I to see this? Granted, the day before we were in Fatima seeing the Virgin Mary and the majestic pieces of that touristy kind of experience, but this was a whole nother level of experience, and it really allowed me to see Portugal in a way that will draw me back 100 times if I could. And that was me just trusting me and trusting my gut and the travel spirits.
Yeah, and then I, because you found it and I say there a lot, I end up going there. It's Jardin du Torrel, so Torel.
Right.
And you can watch the sunset over the park, and there's
Mm,
sometimes music and very gay friendly. So yeah, it's just so cool that you stumbled upon that. It's like it wouldn't have been on your list of things to do
right.
if you had gone there.
Which makes me think of your recent trip to Buenos Aires and your whole soccer experience, and just how that you didn't have that on your itinerary, I don't think.
No, so I'll set that up. Yeah, I just went to Argentina for a month with my husband, so we lived in Buenos Aires, and beforehand, and this will go to some of the tips. So we have like for each of these categories, we'll have some kind of tips to do, and I guess this will set up the one of like reaching out to locals on apps and social media before you go on the trip. So I was researching and I found a bear club in Buenos Aires. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. They had a pool club and I couldn't really tell what it was. And then I went on their Instagram and they were playing soccer, which I love. So it was all these big bears playing like 5-on-5 soccer. So I reached out to the Instagram and said, oh, I'm coming, in a month. I would love to play with you. I play occasionally. I grew up playing. So yeah, I connected with the guy who runs it. And then when we went down there, we linked up and hung out. And then he brought me. I played 3 times, and the last time was a tournament. So maybe like 5 games with just guys from Buenos Aires and from all over South America in this field complex under a highway, very local. Like you never would go to this part of town, you would never find it. And it was like the real deal. It's like they had a bar there, people were drinking, smoking, yelling, having fights about the games. And to me, it was the cool, like I was like, this is the coolest thing in the world. Like to be able to play. And as a gringo, I did very well. Like I tried to play very well and I scored a few goals. I think I got some respect from them. So it was just like, to me, that was the highlight of the whole trip. It was the coolest thing that I got to like be a part of this group. And they were very friendly. They were very welcoming, and then we got to dinners after, and yeah, it was like I got to live like they say porteño, the people from Buenos Aires. So I got to kind of live like a local when I was down there.
Yeah, I was so impressed one night while you were there. You and I just happened to be WhatsApping, and you said, I scored a goal, but I crashed through a fence and I'm having a great time.
Oh yeah.
I said,
I forgot to tell you that. My body, it's like in my mind I can play soccer the way I did at 18, but like my body has changed. So I went for a ball that was I couldn't get to and I was going too fast and I ran into like a chain link fence.
but you're living in the moment. And,
Yeah.
some people really dig that kind of thing on their vacation. And, I commend you for thinking outside the tourist box on that one for sure.
Totally. So that's yeah. So we have a few tips for this. So one is reach out to locals. Like Growler is a great way to meet people. I mean, for sex, of course, but also just to like ask people questions. Hey, you're from this part of the city. I'd love to know like where do you eat or what you do. Um, a lot of those apps you could set it to travel like your travel plans in advance. So on Scruff or other ones, you can show that you're going to be in a city and you can find people. So I definitely, recommend getting in touch with people, asking questions, finding people on social media, um, or just asking locals that you come across, like your waiter or waitress, or, people at a cafe, or if you're at a bus stop, it's like, don't be afraid to ask people and say, hey, I'm staying in this area. Like, what, where would you go, or what's worth seeing? Because they may have a whole different perspective than you know, other tourists who are just there for the week. Um, which kind of goes into my next tip, which is, while you're researching trips, of course, you're gonna ask friends who've been to certain locations, or you may go on YouTube and find videos. I think it's good to get like the kind of travel tips from other travelers. So you kind of know what they know and you can learn from them, but like also find YouTubers that are from the locations you're going, who've lived there and kind of know how to get around and know the perspective a lot differently. And that's what I did going to Buenos Aires. I watched a ton of videos from tourists, but then I found some people who were like, I'm from the city, I live here, this is the deal. And that's to me is really helpful. Um, I have one final tip, but before I say mine, Johnny Bear, do you have any things on your mind of like what you do to
Absolutely.
get outside the tourist box?
Sure. I definitely 100% agree. Doing a little bit of research off the beaten track. I was in Costa Rica, and I was searching for like things to do, like maybe do RV or horseback riding, or some things that I just wanted to try that I've seen that were so beautiful. And some of the main ones that popped up that were very touristy and very pricey were really cool. But then I started asking questions, and I wound up finding some of the more local, you know, brothers that were running a little business. And
Yeah.
they took us on this amazing ride over a mountain that I don't necessarily would have gotten with the big crowd from the hotel.
Yeah.
So it's worth doing and digging and getting a little bit of research done. Um, if you're interested in something like that.
I like that. Yeah. So like when you're researching services and activities, it's like try to go deeper and see if there's some local ones. Yeah, I did the same. I went surfing in Portugal and with my brother and his kids, and the company we found, it was like two, yeah, cousins or something, a whole family who runs this little thing, and one's a DJ. It's like you get to learn about what it was like growing up in that part of the country. So I think that's really cool. I do the same too with finding like masseurs and other things like services when I'm traveling. I try to find ones, especially bears, who are
Yeah.
just easier to connect with. The final tip I have, it just like in terms of finding kind of interesting, strange things, is there's a website and a book called Atlas Obscura that I found a long time ago. And if you go on the website, and we'll link it in the show notes, you can plug in like where you're going to be, and it'll give you like all the kind of strange, weird things to do that like normal tourists wouldn't necessarily do. And my best example of this is my dad found off of an island off of Portland, Maine. I think it's Peaks Island. He found it's the world's only umbrella cover museum. So it's just a museum of umbrella, not umbrellas, just the covers, like the cases they go in. And
Mm.
it's the quirkiest. I went. It's the weirdest little museum, and some lady comes out who owns it and plays accordion for you. And there's like a triple X section for adults that you go back and it's covers that have like nudity. Just the whole thing is bizarre. So you can find things like that no matter what location you're going to.
Absolutely. I was once in Greece in Corfu, and I was wandering around, and I didn't take an excursion that day. I just decided to wander, and I found a synagogue, and this older woman who ran it or watched it, and it was, I don't even know how I found it. It was just like that kind of just being open and say, take me wherever I need to go. And I wound up sitting with her for like 2 hours, and she explained to me how many people during wartime left and how many came back. And there was a plaque, and it such an old, beautiful architectural piece of history. And I wouldn't have found that on a map, and I wouldn't have found that if I
Mm.
booked an excursion. It was just me being open and keeping my eyes and trusting that I can maybe approach this person. And if they said, no, get out of here, you American, I, I would have
Yeah,
left. But she was so sweet and really welcoming. And it was one of the better experiences of that particular day.
I love it. Yeah, I think if you're respectful and you appreciate the culture and you're trying, it's like I think most people appreciate that. Worst case, someone's like, I don't have time for you.
Yeah.
But that's fantastic. Okay, cool. So on to the next section. This is, the bigger tip is, travel at your own pace. So, sometimes we could rush around during trips, or there's a lot you want to see in a short amount of time, and that's definitely depending on where you are. But the big tip is just like slow down at times whenever you can. Like have some time you're going a little slower where you don't need to rush from one site to the next, and really experience the place that you're in, and allow yourself to explore with curiosity and without that pressure. Because I feel it. Like I know when I get into a city, like I went to Madrid, I think 2 years ago, it's like, oh God, what am I gonna do? I need to see good things, and but I'm anxious because what if I go the wrong way or I don't see the thing that's the coolest? And all of a sudden, like those pressures start to build up. So this is kind of like just allow yourself to calm down and slow down and just have that moment to explore like you did in Carrefour.
Yeah.
Um, and one suggestion I have for this, and I'd love to hear from you, Johnny Bear, is something that is to try something that I do on trips that I learned from Nirmal, who does our bear yoga in New York City and also runs some of the bear hug wellness retreats with me and Johnny Bear. We did it at a retreat in New York City. It's called a city safari. And the idea is you like, maybe you're at a park or you're at your Airbnb or you're somewhere and it's like, okay, I'm going to start this city safari. I'm going to set the clock for, 10 minutes or a half hour, an hour, and I'm just going to flow without any plan. It's just like allow your intuition to take over. So it's like look for things that intrigue you, that pull you toward them. So, ooh, I see a building that has a pink facade. Let me walk toward that. Oh, okay. When I get there, I see down the next street, there's something sparkly I want to see, or there's a person who looks interesting, and just kind of allow yourself to keep flowing. And if you're doing it with a group or even on your own, it's cool to be like, okay, I'm going to take like just 5 pictures while I'm doing this. So you're not on your camera the whole time, but you just find little moments and things that are really interesting to you. Almost like if you were on a safari and you're out, in the fields in Africa and you're looking for interesting animals, it's like, let me just find the most interesting things that I like while I'm out here. And it's really freeing because there's no way to do it wrong. And you end up noticing and seeing things that you normally wouldn't. Like, because you're just observing and you're kind of in the moment. So when I was doing it in Madrid, I was like, oh, I looked into like a storefront, like maybe I saw someone getting a haircut, and then I looked up at a building and I saw a detail I wouldn't have seen, or I smelled something in the air and I walked toward it. So you really get to like be in the moment and kind of get out of your head. And to me, it's a really freeing activity to do because there's no pressure. So City Safari is definitely worth trying.
Yeah, I love that. I love that concept and the ability to let go and just explore. Being on your own internal treasure hunt. I remember it was 15 years ago, I went to Venice and I was there for 24 hours because I was taking a cruise from Venice. So I said, I got to do everything in 24 hours. And I had everything on a list, and I had never been there before. And I have really never been traveling alone before either. So I have my hotel room and I mapped everything. And I went out on the map and it started raining as it does in Venice often. And my map was getting wet and I was circling and finding myself in different alleys. And I started to cry. And I don't know what happened to me, but I said, no matter where I go, I'm always lost. And I said, what? That's the beauty of being on in a place where you don't know. You're lost
Mhm.
no matter what, even if you think you know you're going somewhere. It's still all brand new. So I put the map away and I just strolled. I had my umbrella and I strolled and I smiled at people. I eventually got back to my hotel because I knew that. But
Mhm.
I took advantage of the fact that I just strolled and I wound up seeing certain things that were on my list not by accident, because I believe we're always guided, but it is that sense of letting go and trusting and exploring what's in front of you, because you can miss so much
Yeah.
without when you're focusing on something that's not right there.
Yeah. I totally agree. And I think like one other thing that I tend to do if I'm kind of in that moment where I'm like I do this in Buenos Aires a lot where I'd walk from my apartment to a new neighborhood. And it's like I didn't really know anything or where I was going, but I would just pull up my map and find like, a coffee shop that looked really cool and it was like 15 minutes away or 20 minutes away, and I would just walk toward it. And that would like move me in a direction and I'd have somewhere to go. And then once I get there, it's like, okay, maybe I can see where to go from here. But that I think that helps me a lot. Just be like, okay, just find one cool little thing that you want to walk toward, like you did in Portugal to go to that park. Maybe you don't even end up at that park or that cafe, but it just kind of like moves you in a direction.
Yeah, one other thing I could say is something I recently read an article on when just being out walking and wherever you are, but this was about being local, but you can think of a color and when you're out, notice that color wherever you are.
Hmm.
So if you're walking and green is the color, start looking for things that are green and just have that experience and see what comes up for you.
Cool. Yeah, to me, it just sounds like play around and have fun. And,
Yeah,
you know, it's really about getting out of your head, I think.
absolutely.
And yeah, and there's other tips that are kind of adjacent to this, but just like allowing yourself to slow down and catching yourself. And then the third tip is meet the locals, which I think to me is, the most rewarding part of travel is meeting other humans and getting their perspectives and making friends. And that's why I like playing soccer in Argentina to me was amazing, or the friends I have in Portugal and different parts of the world. It's like I very much appreciate that. And um it's the best souvenir. Like you go home and you have a friend, like that's the coolest thing in the world. So don't hesitate to like talk to strangers at cafes or approach people because this also help you get outside the tourist box. It's like ask for recommendations, interact with people, and like it's gonna add a depth of richness to your trips that can't you can't really glean just from like guidebooks and from tourist sites. So how do you feel about that, Johnny Bear? Like meeting locals, how do you do it? Do you do it? Do you have any stories of when you have done
Absolutely.
it?
Yeah, absolutely. I was in St. Lucia and staying at an Airbnb, and they had a list of restaurants and recommendations. And we said to them, but where would you go? And they were
That's
like,
the question.
us? And yeah, where would you go? Forget about this. Where would you go? And they said, oh, we're going tomorrow night. And they took us to this local hole in the wall, and they were like, knew everybody, and everybody was cheersing and sharing wine, and so welcoming the Americans, and and the food was so good. It was
Mhm.
so authentic, and that was a really great time. It was a great meal, and it's to get out of your own way and not be afraid to have a conversation with people, that maybe not, these were the owners, but I wouldn't hesitate to talk to the housekeeping staff and say, hey, where's a good place to
Mhm.
eat, you know,
Oh yeah.
or where can I shop that's a little cheaper, what have you. Just be in conversation with people that acknowledge everybody, and
Yeah,
you'll
yeah.
you'll be surprised.
I love, yeah, that's the big question. Like, where would you eat? What would you do? Because, I mean, we're talking about travel, but like, it doesn't mean this has to be international travel. It could be going to a town next to your town or going to a part of your city you've never been, you know? So for me, this happened. I had a friend in from the UK and we drove up toward you, kind of, Johnny Bear, like up, I think we ended up in Beacon, New York.
Mhm.
It's like 45 minutes for me, and we're looking for a place to eat. And I was like, you kind of want to impress people. You're like, oh, this restaurant looks nice. Let's go there. And he was like, come on, this is like any restaurant I can go to in England. Like, I want to go to like a diner, or I want to go to like somewhere like with character. So we end up going to the diner in town, and it's the food was good, and we got to see very interesting people, and he had a whole different experience. And but so did I. Like, I'm from New York, but it's different going to like a trendy restaurant that has little character and going to a place where like you're going to see some cool, interesting people. So this could just be if you're going to another town or another state, you can ask people. Like I grew up in Connecticut. If I was going to go to like, I don't know, Maine or somewhere, it's like you'd want to ask the people the same questions. So it doesn't matter if you're going to Japan or the other part of your city.
Yeah, I was in Budapest, and I stayed with a local family, and I got to see the country you know, from the inside out, and that is just a whole nother experience. And hanging with the locals, talking to the locals, so paramount
Yeah,
when you're anywhere.
yeah. That's why I love having friends in places like my friends in Portugal. I've been visiting them for 20 years, and like when I go, they'll be like, "Oh, we're busy, so we can't really like bring you around." But we have to go to like the hardware store today. I'm like, "Oh, I want to go there. Like, I want to see what the hardware store looks like." Like,
Yeah.
plot twist, there's a lot of hot dads there. But
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
you want to see what stores look like or what day-to-day life is like. So I think part of like my tip for that is like, yeah, changing your mindset. It's like instead of being like, I'm an outsider, I'm just here, like, looking at things like I'm in a zoo taking photos of animals. It's like, no, be like, we're all human. This is just a different place. And, I want to see what it's like to live here. And I want to be curious about people's culture and about their way of life. And there doesn't have to be this big wall up between us as long as there's respect. So, like, changing your mindset is big, being curious about where you're going, wanting to know what it's like to live in a place. And then I think researching, like, especially for bears and gays or queer people listening to this, it's like, it's cool. And I hear straight people say this all the time, like, you go all these places and you meet all these people and you just kind of go around. And it is kind of like this underground club if you are in the gay or queer bear community. And obviously, there's complexity there, and it's not always the easiest thing to navigate. But like usually, if you find other gay people or you go to other gay spaces, like there is this kind of unspoken like, cool, we'll help you, or we're all kind of on the same team here. So if you're at that park in Portugal, it's like you get to see what they live like, and maybe it's easier to meet people. Or I've had good times meeting people at gay bars or bathhouses or dance parties, whatever it is. Like it's you can find your tribe. So researching those places that feel right to you. Like in Buenos Aires, there's two gay cafes that we found and went to. Um, and also don't be afraid on social media to let people know, hey, I'm going to this city. Do you have any friends there or you live there? That's happened to me when we went to Buenos Aires. I did that on Instagram and I had two people from Buenos Aires reach out, hey, when you're here, let me know. I'll bring you around. And we became really close friends. And we're, day 3 there, we're eating arepas at their house that they're making for us. And we're inviting them over to our pool. And, it's like, it's just, it's cool. And then they get to show you around. Like we went to a nightclub and, they brought us around. And it's just, yeah, I'm ready to travel. I'm ready to get out there, Johnny Bear.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's book that flight.
All right, so this next one is right up your alley because you're a trained chef, Johnny Bear.
Yes.
So it's savor the local cuisine. So try local dishes, eat at local places where other people from there are eating. Um, you know, explore where you are through food.
Mm.
So, what are your thoughts about that, and how do you approach eating in a location?
My goal is to again experience from the inside out. So I will surrender my taste buds to the chef. And when the waiter or waitress or wait staff come to me, I'll say whatever the cook or chef recommends, I'll try it. And if I have certain allergies or certain really dislikes, like no olives, um, I will tell them that. But other than that, I'll be
Oh,
like,
I know about that.
let let's let's have the chef's menu or the chef pick for me. And sometimes in restaurants, uh, there are the options for the chef menu, and you just pick chef menu. But that's what I try to do is give me the most authentic local dish you have and take it from there. And or not just go to restaurants, but like look there. I know there's certain apps or certain ways you could find street food, and food trucks. And you can
Mm,
have great meals on food trucks or from food trucks that you normally wouldn't think to go do because you would think, oh, it's just here in New York, it's like just hot dogs and this and that. But there's a lot of fine dining from a food truck. It's become such a beautiful way for chefs that can't necessarily afford brick and mortar to set up shop. And they are very creative and worthwhile
mm.
and supporting the local guy, which is always important.
Yeah, and like again, going back to meeting locals and off the tourist beat, it's like you could probably talk to the guy who owns the food truck and really get like the tea on a location and get his take on where to eat. And so it's all kind of interconnected. For me, I think like a few things I do. One, and I have two straight friends from New York who do this. Like as soon as they land somewhere new, they go straight to like the convenience store or the grocery store and they buy snacks that they've never seen before.
Mm.
And like I just love that idea. It's like you just gather like a bunch of snacks that you don't really understand and you bring them home and you try them out and talk about them. So that's a really cool one. And then my kind of like pro tip for this is like, you know, if you're looking at a restaurant and there's a bunch of old people who look like they're from that location, like that's going to be the best food you're going to find.
Absolutely.
And in Portugal, like there's tascas, I think they're called. It's like the traditional Portuguese restaurants. So if from the outside they look not so trendy, kind of run down, outdated, whatever. It doesn't look so appealing, but all of the people are there, all the local people are there, and the food is the best and it's the cheapest. Anything where it's just looks trendy or millennial colors or a wall of grass or whatever it is. It's like it's not going to be. You're going to pay for it, and it's not going to be the best. So follow like the local crowds. That's always
Yeah.
my like big tip, especially in Portugal.
Yeah, I agree. And ask your elders too, sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, I remember my ex-father-in-law is from Hong Kong, and whenever we went out to eat with him, I would always really feel so much better because the places he took us, there was all Asian people eating. And I said, well, if they're eating here, you know it's good. I
Hmm.
was a minority there, and that was okay because I got to eat the real authentic food. But it's always try to be open, let your palate do the talking.
I love it. And then the final tip, for this to be like an authentic travel experience for you is like remembering to take care of yourself and like listening to your body while traveling. Like nobody knows you better than yourself. So when you're overextended and doing something like seeing the next site is not going to be beneficial because you might need to rest or slowing down a little bit or when to push yourself. So like listen to your body, take care of yourself and remember that self-care is important even if you're traveling. You want to it's that balance always of like I want to take care of myself enough and get enough sleep and eat well enough so that I can be out doing things and enjoying myself. And like that balance is going to be different for everybody. So what are your thoughts on that, Johnny Bear, in terms of travel? And I will also ask, I'm curious about your take on like the Camp Bear Hug experience because we really instill this in people of like listen to yourself and do what's best for you while you're traveling.
Absolutely. And I'll just touch briefly on the Corfu trip I was on in Greece. Um, that day I was supposed to go on a bunch of different excursions, but I had been in Santorini the day before, and I had walked it had to be 10 or 12 hours. So the next day I woke up and my foot was throbbing. And I said, I'm not gonna not go to Corfu because I want to see it, but I'm not going to do the excursions. So I sat in a cafe, aside from walking over to that synagogue, I sat in a cafe for most of the day and people watched with my foot
Mm,
up on a chair. And at first, I was judgmental, say, oh, I'm missing out on so much. What am I ever going to get back here? Blah, blah, blah. But, I'm a natural voyeur, and I just made the best of that particular situation because that's what my body needed. And that was really important for me. It was a big lesson um, at that time of my life. And then fast forward to a few of the Camp Bear Hug retreats where the excitement of either traveling internationally or nationally, because I've done both in Portugal and in New Orleans with Camp Bear Hug. The concept of taking care of yourself first, putting your needs first is so paramount and so part of the ethos of what you built in the Camp Bear Hug community. There were days where I just needed to tap out and rest or take a nap. And I realized, this is my vacation. And yeah, there's so much to do and so much I want to see. But sometimes vacation is doing what you need to do for you in the stillness of that moment. And that sometimes is the best gift you could give yourself. And to be supported by the community, by the folks, your team, and my co-members, my co-vacationers,
mm,
community members were very supportive and say, "Yo, we'll bring you back something," or this, and it just I felt so supported to embrace my needs in that moment, and I've taken that with me since then and incorporated that into my life more and more. Self-care, self-care, self-love. Self-care is taking care of my body. Self-love is taking care of my soul.
mm. I love that. I always love when we're on the bear hug trips, like seeing people do that. So I remember one day in Portugal, you're like, I'm just gonna hang back at the house, and rest and take care of myself. It's like that's awesome. And we celebrate people doing that. Or like there's times where, we're in Porto and we're trying to get over to like the famous bookstore and someone from the group is like, you know what? I could push myself, but like we have dinner in 2 hours. I'd rather go home, relax, take a shower, and like they make that decision and not feel pressured. And I think that's what all this about is about to me, just like taking off that pressure, like internal and external pressure of like thinking you have to do something, you should do something while traveling, and being like, no, I don't want to. I would rather do this other thing, whatever it is. Um, and then one other practical tip for me is always like, I think like getting a massage goes a far way, and a lot of places you can get them on the less expensive side. So I've gotten really big on getting a massage like the day I'm leaving to go home, so I am actually relaxed at the end of a trip. But I've also gotten like, a foot massage in the middle of a trip if I'm walking a lot. So yeah, looking for treatments, staying hydrated, bringing hydration packs with you when you land, um, getting enough sleep, you know, eating in a way where you're enjoying stuff, but kind of, okay, like, how am I gonna feel after this meal? So like it's all about just kind of checking in with yourself and doing what's best for you so that you can get the most out of your trip and come home rejuvenated.
Yeah. I also think it's to know your limits as well and to be okay with that. Just because you're in London and I was there and I said, I have to have fish and chips. I have to have fish and chips. And I eventually got the fish and chips, but it was like at the end of the day, and I was like, I was already full. And I said, but this was, I was like punishing myself for
Mm,
wanting to have something authentic. And I could have gotten it packaged up and taken it back to my room. So it was a lesson learned. But you can pace yourself and don't shit on yourself, or
mhm.
others. Change the should to a could, because it's much more empowering.
I love that. Yes, so we wish everyone very authentic travels this year and wherever you're going, if it's local or far away. And we're gonna post about this on Instagram and in the Belly Club Facebook group, which we encourage you to join. So it's facebook.com/groups/the Belly Club. And we talk a lot about topics of body positivity, body acceptance, the bear experience, but also travel as well. And we have the bear hug retreats, and those are running almost year round. So if you want to go on a food tour or a wine tour or a wellness retreat or a fun summer camp. Like we have a lot of experiences that are small group and we really instill like all of these tips into them. So this is a good place to practice them and learn. So you can go to coachcub.com/retreats to learn about those. And we'll be back with the next episode. We're going to be talking about meaningful, or not meaningful, mindfulness. We're going to be talking about mindfulness travel.
Yes, and all our tips that we talked about today will be listed in our transcript or
Yep. Yeah, yeah. In the
on
notes.
in the notes. So if you didn't catch it all, it'll be written there, and you can always reach out to us, and we will reach back. So
Yeah.
have a
Sorry,
lovely
I cut you off.
yeah
No, you go, John.
yeah.
Um,
Bon voyage, everyone.
yeah. And yeah, go on YouTube. I mean, you want to see us in our shirts. We look great. It looks like we're about to go on a cruise.
We're ready.
All right. Thanks, Johnny Bear.
All right,
Ciao for
Coach
now,
Cub.
everybody.
Bon voyage.
Ciao.
Bye.